The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by Continental Energy Solutions. Check us out at cesnrg.com. I'm Tim Montague, your co-host. Today on the Clean Power Hour, SN10 sticks the landing, then goes boom. Starlink goes mobile. Looking forward to that. FSD beta is rolling out for the masses. Totally psyched for that as well. And Jigar Shah joins the DOE. And Yann Brandt surfs into battery storage. We have lots of solar and storage news for you today. Welcome to my co-host, the commercial solar guy, John Weaver.
Good afternoon, Timothy. It is a blue crystal sky outside. I wore my short sleeves. I kept the window down as I drove home. I think it's time. I think it's getting close to it. And I know we're gonna get caught. I know there's gonna be a storm coming, but I don't care. It's beautiful outside, and I just wanted to let you know that.
Yes, spring is in the air and rockets are in the air. Rockets are exploding in Texas. So we're going to dive right into the SN10 that successfully landed. They're doing high elevation, what they call high elevation tests now, right? Of these, of the Starship. And
Boom.
the Starship successfully did a vertical landing, right? This is a vertical takeoff, vertical landing space vehicle, which is critical because they're going to take off and then they're going to go land on Mars with this bad boy. And after they refuel in space. And so for the first time, they successfully brought her down. It didn't quite go as planned, but you know, a little explosion is to be expected, considering the track record for the SN8 and 9. What blows me away, John, pun intended, is that they just keep rolling out these SNs so quickly. SN11 is already on the launch pad, and this is Musk's signature: rapid innovation. He's like, we don't know what the problem is. We're going to fly another rocket and figure it out. And if it means blowing up another rocket, it means blowing up another rocket.
I saw a graphic that I believe said 16, 17, 18 SN was already under production. Maybe it was 18. So I think there's, after 11, I think there's another 7 that are somewhere with parts to some degree laying out. And so there is a budget probably to blow up 15 rockets, I would bet, instead of just the first of 10 we've seen. But who knows?
Over the weekend, I read the new book called Liftoff: Elon Musk and the Desperate Early Days That Launched SpaceX by Eric Berger. I highly recommend it. It's an excellent read, and it's insight into the early days of SpaceX when they, they first tried, I think, Brandenburg, an Air Force base in California. That was too bureaucratic for them, so they went to a group of islands far, far away in the Pacific Ocean, but near the equator, because you get good velocity and shorter takeoff when you launch from the equator. And but it's very scrappy, man. Like totally hardcore. These engineers just working 24/7, living on uh, beer and cigarettes. So check that out. It helped me understand how things are a little wonky with Tesla too. You know, like they have some quality issues you see and people complaining about, and things aren't fully baked. It's a just get it out there in the wild and we'll fix it in the next iteration. And we're not going to do like a build for 2021. We're going to do 10 different builds for 2021, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're building the ship or building the airplane as they fly it, so to speak, which I really appreciate.
Well, I mean, if you look at it another way, everything that every single one of us on this planet are doing is while we're just flying through space, wild, and we got to move fast. Otherwise, change will catch up with us and eat us like dinosaurs, and we don't want that. We want to be better than the dinosaurs. So do it on the fly. Sometimes the car won't be perfect. Yeah, I don't really care because that's just reality. Oh,
Rockets aren't the only thing that goes boom, apparently.
yeah, I feel for this, you know, installer, just some guy driving from one job to another. This is a little resi project, and boom, lost 2 panels. Oh, look at that, nice whack. Um,
Yep.
oh, poor guy. They found them. They figured it out. Nobody was injured, nothing like that. But oh, poor guy.
So getting to some real solar news, we
Yep,
have a blog story from the commercial solar guy.
I know that
And
guy.
I know that guy too. Before I forget, I want to thank you for bringing Alliant Energy to my attention. As we'll see a little later on, I just published an interview with Mark Kingsley, their CEO. They
Nice.
make a tracker for bifacial modules.
Hmm.
And this is just one of several episodes that I owe to you, John Weaver. So thank you.
Hey, all these people want to sell stuff, and I always share pictures of their images because it's neat gear. So I just keep talking to these cool professionals, managers, engineers. LinkedIn and Twitter, two great resources for connecting with people who are there to chat about work and neat little stuff. And since I enjoy it, hopefully I can keep giving you cool conversations.
Yeah, if you're curious, you can learn about so many cool technologies and companies. And even though like the tracker industry is dominated by a few very large companies like Nextracker and Array Technologies, there's a lot of other companies that are making really killer technology. So you don't have to go with the industry leader, so to speak. And but I digress. Let's talk about the story here. What is the
So
story?
yeah. So the story is that last year in the United States, solar photovoltaics grew 28% and reached a super slight tiny bit above 3.2% of all electricity. And they added like 0.5%, like a non-trivial volume, like because it was the record year of capacity added, and that record year was mostly installed in Q4. So we're going to have beautiful numbers this year. But I just, breaking 28%, that's exponential. And I think exponential, you got to do it multiple years in a row to get that value. But here you go. So you can see, the third column, the second and third columns are the big ones. You see this percentage growing in the third column from the right, and then you see the growth from prior year. Yeah, I know we see giant numbers early on, and that data is not perfect in 2014 and prior. So just, take it with a grain of salt. But 28% growth when we're this far into it, that's not a trivial number. And so we added, 30,000 kilowatt, 30,000 megawatt hours of solar. And it's just big growth. And if you go through the pictures in this article, I'm going to start analyzing very hard the the solar that's being generated. So Illinois last year increased its solar output 118%. All of these states came from a low base of solar. So of course, these aren't like California. But if you look at that fifth largest state, that was Texas, and Texas was the fourth or fifth largest state of total solar. So there's a lot of solar growth that's going on right now, and next year we're really going to see it in the numbers because we installed 220 gigs this year or last year. Most of it was in Q4, like 9 gigs was in Q4, and then almost more than half was in the second half of the year. So that means our growth numbers the year after are going to be really big. This next chart is a nice one, starting with Hawaii. Well, that's just Texas. That's showing Texas starting to pop. But this
Oh,
chart's
this one,
pretty.
yeah.
So this is the amount of in-state generation, and it's rough for a couple of data reasons. It's within 3%, but it's super close. So like, this could be 20, it could be 21% or 19% for Hawaii, but close-ish. But roughly what this is, it's solar generated versus solar used, or versus electricity used. And so of Hawaii's electricity generated, 20% of it was solar. 20% of Hawaii was solar. That's a pretty cool volume of electricity. Um, we're going to start doing some projections. The very last chart on that article, we have a nice little projection going forward with different numbers, and I'm going to start paying attention to the EIA data really hard and see if I can create some value from it, some sort of data tool to sell to the market. See if it can employ somebody who will learn about projects, so I can, get a handle on where things are being built better in the United States. And I think that would create some value for somebody. So that's my first article starting it.
I love this. I love this graphic showing the wind, solar, natural gas. I'll put this on screen too. I can't click through on it because it takes me to the EIA story, but
Uh,
but
Planned solar power plants.
you can see how Texas is just on fire, and with solar and wind, and a lot of solar coming into Illinois, but all up and down the East Coast,
Mm-hmm.
all up and down California, the Southwest. Um, it's this is just an awesome site.
Yep. I mean, we got a lot coming. And the next couple of years, we're going to see this number pop. We're going to go over 5%, not in 2021, but by the end of 2022, we're going to see that the United States got greater than 5% of its electricity. And that's pretty significant. It took us, 30 years to get to 1%. And now we're going to get to, 10%. Let's see. So we got to 1% 2, 3, 4 years ago. And now we're going to get to 10%. You know what? My chart has it, but we're going to get to 10% within like 10 years. So it's we're going to double our rate of growing 10x. And that's not trivial. That's not trivial at all. Let's see, we hit 1%. Sorry, I'm rambling here, but this is a super important thing. I want to fix this real fast. So we hit 1% somewhere in 2015, 2016. We broke 1%. And then my chart way at the bottom sees us somewhere at 10%. Depending on whose projections, we're looking 2025, 2026, maybe a little later toward 2030. But we're going to take, infinity through 2016 and then 2016 through 2025 to go from 1 to 10%. It's going to take us 10 years to go from 1% to 10%. That, I think, is not trivial, and we're going to be in the midst of it.
Yeah, the beauty of exponential growth. When you're at 1%, you're only 7 doublings away from 100%, and so it's totally doable for us to completely green the grid by 2035, as our friends at Rewiring America pointed out, and the 2035 report from Berkeley. So, as Jigar says, deploy, deploy, deploy. We just got to get busy. Speaking of deploy, this Megapack project in Victoria, Australia, is a big one. I don't know if it's setting a new record. It's we wanted to cover this story a week or two ago, but anyway,
Just another big battery. It's among the biggest batteries out there, but it's not like a record anymore. 450 megawatt hours, though. I mean, that's healthy. We have multiple batteries that are above a gigawatt hour now. So this is in the second class of really big batteries, and but it's big for Australia, which is great, and they need it. They could use these batteries, not trivial. And Australia is going to build a whole bunch of batteries. They may even build some giant batteries that are about 100 times larger than this one. So there's that.
yeah, and the goal here for Victoria is 50% renewable energy by 2030. That's only 9 years away, and so the Aussies are going after it. I can't wait to go back to Australia and visit some of these massive solar projects and storage projects. Is Neoen, or however you say that, are they an IPP? I can't
Yeah,
recall.
they're a French IPP. Yes.
Yeah. They need a new name, but otherwise I'm stoked about their work. Just saying. Got to pick on somebody here. Oh, Dude, the Vikings have solved carbon capture. I predict they are going to win the Musk Xprize if they're eligible. Um, and
Nice.
I knew about this kind of vaguely, but I didn't realize like how far it had come. And so this is a company called Carbfix, which is taking CO2 and shoving it down into the earth and turning it into stone. And I am such a fan of this because stone takes a long time to turn into other stuff and come back into the atmosphere. It's not enough to pump it, for example, as a liquid into the crust of the earth, which is what Equinor, which we're also going to talk about today, the Norwegian oil giant, is doing in pilot form. And there's been a few other projects around. I'm skeptical of the liquid form. I'm a big fan of this carbonate mineral storage of CO2. And um, the key word here is permanent, right? So it'll stay down there at least for 1,000 years. And and they're using geothermal energy, right? So it's like they have this plethora of clean green energy in Iceland, and now they're putting it to work to pump CO2 into the earth and turn it to rock.
I, I want to see him turn it into building material. That's the only. I think storing it too much limits our economic ability to do things, and so that's what I think those folks are going to have problems with is competing financially against those who turn it into a building material, because I think that's going to be real important is to make money off of the product, and and if we don't make money, it'll be a little bit harder for it to scale. And I think being able to scale is super important. And
Yeah,
so if they use it for building material, I'm suddenly down. And I'll support any carbon capture tool that then turns that product into a building material or um, a building material or a fuel, because you have a back end use for it, and it just jives so much more. And that seems to be what's really, because this is not going to be able to be just straight up incentives for 30 years of extracting CO2. It's got to have a business plan. And I bet you Elon's doing this carb thing to get the CO2 out of the air so he can get CO2 methane for his rocket ships or something like that and use it as fuel. That's my gut for the long play for him pushing the CO2. And he might just be straight up saying, hey, let's do CO2. But I don't think so. I think he wants to use it for some sort of material, some sort of hardware, and put it to use. But again, Carbfix is awesome. I love this concept. I want to see him. I want to see him do what's it called? Building material. Don't just push the rock in the ground. Let me build something with it. A house made out of CO2. Gosh, that would be just like kicking somebody in the face. That would be great somehow.
yeah. I mean, it would be nice to make building materials out of this stuff, but honestly, I don't care if we can cost effectively store it underground. That's fine too. There's going to be multiple solutions. We just got to get busy with more better solutions, right? We got to experiment more. We got to go SpaceX on this problem. So, thank you, Elon, for doing the X Prize. The official announcement, I guess, is still pending in April on Earth Day. So we'll look forward to that. So there's a lot of people changing jobs right now, John. And our friend Jigar Shah has made a move. He is well known because he founded a company called Sun Edison that invented the solar PPA, right? And Jigger's come on the Solar Podcast a couple times. He's an Illinois native for all intents and purposes. He was born in India, but came to the U.S. when he was very little. I think he was 1 year old, and and he made a real name with Sun Edison, made a splash, and most recently has been the president of Generate Capital. So Jennifer Granholm, the new Secretary of Energy, has tapped Jigger to be the head of the loan program at DOE. which has made 30, I was looking at their website this morning. They've made $30 billion in loans. They use this number 40 billion. So I guess they've got like another 10 billion of funds available. So if you're an energy company or an innovative transportation company, check out the DOE loan program. What do you make of Jigar's move?
First off, congrats, dude. I mean, great work. The getting a position like this. He's a handshaker too from the White House, and so very good, successful work, and it's really cool to see it. So yeah, all those things, all the congrats. Even though I disagree with you, Jigger, that we should definitely keep incentivizing wind and solar deployment because it's about deploying. It's not about being 100% fiscally responsible. It's too late. We got to attack. But otherwise, um, I like what I've been reading. I read that article specifically, the one you shared prior, and I was very happy to see some of the points because his logic of using government money as a bridge to bankability, that's super smart because it's tough for small business people, medium business people, people who have jobs on the line at the end of the quarter in their corporate entity. It's tough for those people to push a product and get it to scale and get it so that it's financially viable. And the first big bets, I think, on big utility scale solar came from the Department of Energy back in the late 2000s, early teens. And that sort of helped this big utility scale thing that's going on now. And I'm super interested in it. And I'm super interested in how things scale from this cool idea toward being the biblical thing we dream of them, because in between there's all kinds of steps. And for instance, solar panels, back in 1890, Thomas Edison's like, yeah, we don't need coal, we should be doing solar panels. It's like, okay, smart guy. But it took us 120 years. It took satellites, it took this, it took that, it took all these iterations, and now solar is dominating. And so I'm interested in how like a flow battery might come to be, and it may not be. I'm interested in how electric school buses and electric buses could dominate, how hydrogen could do something to offset gas. There's many things that I've read that Shah has talked about, and so I'm interested in the philosophy, that first concept he put out there of a bridge to bankability. That's super smart. I like that concept, and I'm willing. And you know what? None of it's going to go directly to solar power because solar power is not in his wheelhouse at this point. Now it's big stuff, or it's small stuff. We're big stuff, and so his game is a little lower now. So but he'll make batteries. He's going to invest in some types of batteries, some sort of long duration energy storage. I bet it's going to be within the game, and it could be hydrogen. It could be some sort of flow batteries, because everybody talks about long duration storage. I disagree with them. We could just stack lithium ion. I mean, that's what I think is going to happen. Long duration storage is cool. Maybe it's for security, but anyway, good job. It's one of us, one of us, one of us. That's him. Anyway.
Yeah, congrats to Jigar Shah for making this move. I think it's a wonderful thing. I think he's perfect for the job. I think the DOE is often slighted in ways that are not honest. And people like to shine a light on the Solyndra failure, which happened during the Obama administration. But there's ample evidence that the run rate, the hit rate of this program is quite good. I read that 87% of the recipients are in good standing. Tesla themselves were a recipient of the program. So that gives them street credibility. And these are mostly companies that you just haven't heard of yet, but you will. And I'm with you that energy, long-term storage is going to be a focus. It's interesting, John. We're doing our first flow battery project at Continental this summer.
Sweet.
And it's eye-opening though to see the physical footprint of a 2 megawatt, 4 megawatt hour battery. So in lithium ion world, right, that's 2 shipping containers. two 30 or 40-foot containers. For a flow battery, this facility is 16 containers.
Holy
Uh,
crap.
yeah, so we're using a company called CubeCell, which is a
I've heard of
Canadian
them.
company.
Heard of them.
And but that alone made me go, well, wow, it's fine if you have the real estate for all of those shipping containers, but the logistics and the footprint tell me that flow batteries have a ways to go in order to compete truly with lithium ion. And I think that's why we don't hear a whole lot about flow batteries yet. It's this company, the customer did all the due diligence on the storage, and
Mhm.
they concluded that the flow battery was the most economic. So there are economics supporting flow batteries. It's just the logistics are a little bit of a nightmare.
I am checking out the product on their website. It's pretty neat. I'm trying to figure out what their base technology is on, whether it's vanadium, whether it's what kind of flow. Will you let me write about this for PV Magazine USA? Show off your company.
Yeah, that would be awesome, man. Let's make that happen.
It's vanadium. Okay, so it's a vanadium flow. So you just take tons of pictures, dude. Tons of pictures, everything you can, and we'll talk it up, man. Because the world needs to know about this product, this company, and the fact that your customer picked them. Would your customer be interested in having their business be talked about? Because that's we'll do that as well.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
don't see why not. They make equipment for the electrical industry.
cool.
So I'll get with the team and see what we can do there. Before we leave the Jigar Shah story, I do want
Yeah,
to
yeah.
note that the Energy Gang is losing Shah as a co-host. So that is a loss for us in the energy media world. The Energy Gang podcast, if you're not familiar, check it out. And I heard this morning that they're going to be bringing on us a series of guests to make up. So they
Oh,
continue.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. That's a big
um,
name to lose. We lost somebody, but the world will gain for our loss.
exactly.
So there's that.
Yep. And speaking of people changing jobs, our friend over at Solar Wake Up Live, Yann Brandt, has also made a nice move, and he has gone to a company called Flexgen, and they are a quote unquote storage integrator. If you're not familiar with Solar Wake Up Live, just go to solarwakeup.com. Jan writes a daily newsletter on renewable energy news, and he is what I've come to know as a turnaround artist in the energy space. He was at a racking company. What was the racking company most
They
recently?
were just purchased. Jan Brandt Racking.
Yeah, so he helped turn around that rooftop racking company. That's racking used in
Quick Mount.
residential. Sorry.
He was on Quick Mount, and Quick Mount was
Yeah.
acquired by ESDEC.
Yep. ESDEC.
That's
They
a European group from Norway. No, not from Norway, from the Netherlands or Belgium. They were started by brothers 20 years ago. Eventually, they got bought by hedge fund, and the hedge fund has been on a residential racking buying spree in the U.S., including Jan Brandt's Quick Mount. So
yep. So anyway, Jan and Kelsey Pegler, who's now the CEO of FlexGen, knew each other from some previous venture, and now Jan is the CFO of FlexGen. And it looks like they're doing some projects in Texas. These are grid scale or utility scale storage projects, and I don't know a lot more about it than that, but I'm not surprised to see Jan, I guess, moving into storage, right? Because he is, like you and I, a very tech centric and tech forward guy. So congrats to Jan Brandt. We have time for a couple more stories, but it's going to be hard to choose. So um, I think we'll just kind of gloss over Starlink. But before we do that, you have been invited to be an FSD beta tester, John. Tell us what's going on there.
Well, that's not fully true yet. When Elon put out his tweet this past week saying, "Hey, if you want to be part of the FSD beta, send us a message. Let us know." He didn't put out a way to send that message. He just said, "Hey, do it." So it's Elon. He's hanging out. He just decided to do it. So what I did, I went into the app and I messaged the tech people, the service people. I said, "Hey, I don't know where to go. Would you mind giving me a clue?" And they gave me an email address to send some data, and then including my VIN number. And all that data is going to be headed to the early access team. And maybe I'll just get a sudden update on my phone saying, "Hey, you've been approved to download the beta." So technically, I haven't gotten it yet, but within 10 days, per a tweet that you saw that he followed up with, hypothetically, this should be going to everybody. So that was, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So next week, I think everybody that wants it, that is legally allowed per the Tesla team, because they already mentioned that. They said, listen, in some places it may not work. Some places it may not be allowed. They were talking legality stuff. And so they're going to do a message and they're going to let everybody know. And I think in 10 days, next time we talk, maybe next time we talk, I'll have something to talk about it.
Cool. Yeah, they've, apparently they are going to do a wide release now of the FSD beta, which has been in narrow release. Like fewer than a couple thousand customers have been trying the FSD beta. If you're not familiar with this is the self-driving technology that Tesla is growing and aiming for level 5. Although apparently, John, the FSD version 9 that's coming is still only considered level 2, which kind of surprised me. Because there's been a reveal of some communications between Tesla and the state of California DMV.
Mm-hmm.
Tesla explicitly does not do public testing in California on public roads because of the strict requirements that the DMV there has for publication of the information. But so anyway, it'll be fun to see, and there's tons of videos. If you just YouTube that FSD, you'll see people showing off how the car is behaving, and the it does amaze, right? Because this is for city streets now. You and I know full well that it works pretty well on the highway, but the FSD that we have is nothing for city streets, right?
Correct. Yeah. Well, first off, I think Tesla has to be very measured in how they communicate, because first off, you need us animals to be excited and throw down 50, 60, 70 G's for a big box of metal. But then at the same time, he's trying to do stuff that we haven't done. And, we're moving through space on this rock, trying to figure out how to do things. And you mentioned it, like the SpaceX work, how they were just kind of working and figuring stuff out, and gave you kind of a insight into Tesla. It's that same thing here. You're like, listen, we're not level 5. We probably won't be level 5 before the end of the year, but we really, really want to be. And our marketing team is sales pitching it hard as hell. And that's what our engineers are going toward. And one day we are going to be, but we're not there yet. So, cool down. And so there's like this game that has to be danced. And it's how do you appease the regulators who need to protect the public versus how do you protect the public by moving forward and taking care of the species? And, that's why they have lobbyists and very subtle lawyers who are able to write words that none of us normies can decipher. So it's hard work. It's a dance there. I get it.
And real quick, Starlink is also going mobile now. Starlink is SpaceX's satellite internet service, which they've been rolling out for the public now. You're a early adopter, John, but what is the mobile capabilities going to be, or what are the mobile capabilities of Starlink?
Well, I'm still new at learning about it, so I don't know much. But what I have read very lightly is that Elon said he's going to make Starlink mobile, or at least FCC applications showed up saying, "Hey, Starlink's going mobile," and it was suggested initially that it would include cars, Elon said, no, the base station's too big. And Elon's also talked about challenges with shrinking the base station and dropping the cost. So it might be a little while before we have cell phone Starlink or base station Starlink, or maybe you can somehow tap Starlink into the mobile towers and have, a certain cell phone service through the satellites going straight to mobile towers. Put giant satellites on the top of those things. That'd be kind of neat. But so it looks like it's going to be an RVs, which would jive really well with your beauty. And then of course, like I assume the Tesla Semi is going to have one of these, and we're going to have a network of giant transformer trucks driving around the planet, moving our stuff, and then they'll turn straight into boats. It'll be like transform, and then it's a giant shipping container going to Europe, and then it hits the European transform, and then just distributes across the coast. And yeah, I don't know. I get excited.
He has said that the Cybertruck will float. So
Oh yeah.
I would not be surprised if Tesla goes after amphibious vehicles, just because I heard Musk talking about the Cybertruck and how, he just really went for a space age cyberpunk look and feel. It wasn't the most efficient from an aerodynamics perspective. The angular wedge is not nearly as aerodynamic as other designs could or would be, but it's bad. And so Musk has a real sense of humor, adventure, and a love for sci-fi. So bring it on. Bring it on.
Yep.
Do you want to talk about the moon, or what is the last story you want to talk about?
Well, come on. Who doesn't want to talk about a solar power moon base to protect the planet's DNA? I mean, isn't that exactly what we're supposed to talk about on this show? Come on. Is there any topic that would be more fitting for us? This involves rockets, solar power, and weird things. And so
a modern global insurance policy, what the heck is that?
he wants to save a little bit of DNA from every single living thing on Earth. And I think they said like 6.7 million animals of different DNA types. And one thing is, if they're going to have human DNA, whose? And, are we going to pick like 100 people and everybody gets a chance? Or are we just hoping that the human beings will live? And or maybe it's okay if the human beings die off and we just save the animals for the next for the zoological hunters coming from outside of our solar system, because we have to put some sort of beacon so that it's always sending out a signal saying, hey, if you hear this signal, the humans messed up. Come fix this thing. And I like that idea. Spend a few billion.
The Norwegians built a vault on Svalbard, which is in the Arctic Circle, and it's a seed vault for all kinds of seeds for fruits and vegetables, right? And it promptly flooded because of climate change. So they had to retrofit a better design. But this is a similar concept, except for human DNA, or living things DNA. So it's a seed vault for DNA. I like that idea. I don't know that the moon is the best place to put it, but it's a place to put it. So yeah, in the event of a catastrophic event here on Earth, I could see that being useful if there's a colony there to bring it back to life, or a collection of robots to bring it back to life. I guess I could see that, right? The robots just cranking out the artificial eggs and growing a new generation of living things.
Do one more article before we go, and it's fitting. Do the floating barge, the floating battery.
Okay.
It's not that special. It's not even a technological advance. It's a metal thing that we put some other metal things on it. But it's just this funny little progression of things that we keep doing. And these little progressions are showing very clearly that the technologies that we're developing in the world, we're going to be able to do whatever we want with them. These batteries, we're going to be able to float batteries out to wind farms and float hydrogen production facilities out in the ocean. We're going to put solar and wind, batteries and hydrogen all over the ocean and we're not going to use any human land that we need. We're then going to farm from underneath these batteries, and we're going to have like giant kelp farms and fish farms living in the actual ocean underneath our giant ocean energy sources. And then suddenly we'll stop farming on the land maybe halfway or something. Then we'll build upward, and it's just these things we keep doing. I get hopeful every single day as a human being that wants us to live and not get squished on this rock. And it's cool. It's cool to watch us do stuff and watch all the weird little alien actions that we do, because we're no longer dogs and chimps and lizards and bugs. We're a species reaching beyond, and so it's kind of cool on this show to get to talk about that stuff out loud, because when I talk to it about my friends, they just kind of stare at me sometimes. But you're kind of forced at this point with this video thing to talk about weird things. So thanks, Tim.
Yeah, these floating batteries, I'm I guess I'm of two opinions. If I first go, well, gosh, that's got to be expensive. But when you think about island countries like the Philippines or Puerto Rico, where they um, don't necessarily have unlimited land resources like we seemingly have here in the US, and they have expensive power because they're using diesel generators for a lot of their electrical generation, then batteries start to make a lot of sense and provide resiliency and all kinds of grid services. So I say bring it on. And I was watching a YouTube video about underwater cable technology. I mean, we have that stuff really dialed in now.
Hmm.
And so I think it'll be a thing. So, John, how can our listeners find you, Mr. Commercial Solar Guy?
You can call me, you can email me, you can tweet at me, you can DM me on Instagram, you can message me on LinkedIn, you can go to my website via the contact form, you could probably go to my office, you could text me, you can there's a whole bunch of ways. Commercialsolarguy.com is my website. I like to write about news, and we build stuff in the Northeast, and we're a developer. We can pull your permits. We can get some boots on the roof. We do battery, solar, storage, all kinds of stuff. But just type commercial solar guy or John Fitzgerald Weaver into the Goog, into the Bing, and we will pop up right near the top.
Excellent. Well, you can find me, Tim Montague, at cesnrg.com/podcast, where all of this content lives. As I mentioned earlier, today we published my interview with Mark Kingsley of Alliant Energy. Check that out. They make a ballasted tracker that uses road building technology. So it's all above ground, and it's especially good for bifacial, which is really coming on. We saw a slew of bifacial projects here in Illinois this past season. So bifacial is real and present. And then Erica Myers, we discussed the EV opportunity, the EV transition. She's now with the World Resources Institute, and she's a global thought leader on EV, electrify everything, including everything that moves. Did an episode on cybersecurity and communications with Tom Tansey at Sunspec. If you build or maintain utility scale solar projects, you want to know about Sunspec, and their communications protocols are bleeding edge for our industry. So check it out, CES Energy. And then, of course, all of the clean power hours are here as well with you and me, John. We talk about green hydrogen. We talk about space solar. We talk about low emissions tankers and so many cool things in the solar storage and energy transition space. So it's really wonderful to do this on a weekly basis. We drop these videos every Wednesday. So check it out at cesenergy.com. I want to thank you, John, for being my co-host, and I want to thank all of our listeners for joining us. Let's grow solar and storage.